MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Last week on My Fantasy Podcast.
You have to be able to describe your dishes more than just saying delicious. You have to say the aroma makes my taste buds blossom. Something like that.
I wanted to ask you something and kind of tie this into have a political theme to it too, but are you going to deny coverage for pre-existing injuries? Like, is there going to be an RG3 rule in this?
Nope, there's no RG3, and to tell you the truth, if Tony Romo was still playing, we probably wouldn't cover him.
But yes, Randy Gibbs, you have it right there. I'm not just this loser or this laughingstock that Dan and Brandon bring on the show so they could just use me for their entertainment.
You want to be honest? Wayne Selden was more impressive than Lonzo Ball to me. The Memphis Grizzly, baby.
What time? Oh, it's nap time. All right. Okay, just making sure. Newbury's got to go down after this.
Wayne Selden.
Wayne Selden. Okay. All right.
Wayne Selden. Dylan Brooks. How about that?
We're gonna start drinking on the show towards the end when these things get thrown out here.
What up, podcast peeps? Thanks for joining us again, all of you, even the haters out there. We got many haters out there every single week, but we'll call you out and read your questions too. We don't care. It's My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Appreciate you guys for joining us though on the For Reals though, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, WBLZ Sports, however you check us out. Appreciate it each and every week. We do really appreciate it. I'm Brendan Reed. What up, Dan? You appreciate it every week, don't you?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Thanks for listening, guys. And yeah, to the haters, well, we welcome you. Come on. My mailbox is filled daily now with hate mail, and I think a lot of it is in good fun, but we appreciate it, and that'll get you on air. Throw us some hate, make us laugh. We do mailbag segments every week, and you will be included in that. So it's definitely something that I enjoy, going through all the questions and bringing them to you guys, because you don't even see half the stuff that I have to put up with. A lot of it's ineligible garbage, but the good ones get on.
That's right. We ain't scared. I am Brandon Reed. That is Dan Shaw, your host for the podcast, of course, and we'll bring on Orlando Torres here in just a second. But we do get hate. We love it. We have some great fans. They actually listen to us, Dan. We found that out each and every single week with these questions, that these listeners are really listening to the details and listening to us. And even the little small things like our introductions, like we'll talk about with Orlando a little bit later. But man, I love hate. I think it can make the site thrive, and it produces some of our best questions, like Jackson Borland, who is back on the podcast today. And I love it, Dan. So today I got my own theme. I'm going to be a hater on today's show. This is going to be the hater show, and I'm just going to act like a hater all day.
Welcome to the club, man. I mean, all along, that's been me. So according to you, at least. But yeah, it feels good. It does. It does. So I hope you enjoy it because I love it, and so does Des the kitty. She's a big fan of the hate.
Yep. Des the person probably is too. I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine, seriously, if you're in the limelight, if you're a celebrity, how much hate you get. Because I've seen on just some like Facebook groups and posts of celebrities that will post. This is mostly political, but people will post stuff, and if you go, it depends on which kind of site you go to. But people just say rotten things about other people, just like die. You need to just die. You've been told that before, haven't you, Dan?
3 times today. So yeah, it's a little scary, but you got to take it as it is. And I'm sure I don't get nearly as much as even the slightest of a celebrity, but the truth today. But yeah, 3 death threats today via an article that I wrote. So it's definitely interesting, and we'll welcome it, but temper it a little bit.
Wow, that's crazy. Did not know it was a big thing for you, Dan. I've never been told that. So I guess I need some catching up to do, and I'll do it today. I'm just going to be a hater all day long. So guess what's on today's show, if you really want to know. We're going to do a news whip around. Several things to talk about here. Some injuries in the NFL early in training camps. We've got the MLB trade deadline, which we didn't get to really talk much about. It hadn't occurred on our last by the time our last podcast hit, and it's very close to Dan. And we got a question about that as well. So we'll talk about that. The MLB trade deadline gets Dan's take on that. We also want to check in on that Carmelo Knicks saga. Where's Carmelo? What's going to happen with this? We'll talk briefly about that, just to hit on some NBA talk and to hit about some NBA wannabes. LeVar Ball is back in the conversation, and we'll talk about that. Most of you know, and I'm not sure Dan knows completely this whole story that I read today. I'm not sure he's really keeping up, but I'm going to turn Dan into a LeVar Ball hater on today's show. It's going to happen, Dan. Not
possible, but I'll welcome it and try to. But here's the thing, too, just with LeVar. To our audience, I didn't tell Brandon to bring LeVar into our podcast today. So LeVar is doing exactly what he wants, which is getting people who don't like him, Brandon, to talk about him. So you're the one introducing him to this show, so he welcomes it. I welcome it. BBB for life, baby.
That is true, and that is the damn truth. You're right. I did, and it's the damn truth. You know what? I'm just going to talk about them until people are sick of talking about them, I guess. But this is no excuse for this one. Got to get your take on that. But anyway, we're going to bring in Orlando. We'll talk about this Kyrie and LeBron drama. Hadn't really touched on that at all since it broke. So we'll talk about that briefly before getting into an NBA mailbag question that we have. We'll answer NFL fantasy mailbag questions as well, as we got plenty of them this week. Great questions. And we'll get into some MLB fantasy, as last time we talked, I told you I was going to beat Dan Shaw. Dan Shaw beat me by, 4? Something like that. 4 or 5. Shock. Every single time. He beat me, but lost last week to DDT. Dylan Davis Trotto. A little applause for our man DDT. Dan is slumping just like his Astros have been a little bit there. But though MLB season is winding down, I need help to push me through this. I'm on a little bit of a hot streak, hopefully, outside that loss to Dan, but I think I got his number now. So help me help you with these MLB fantasy mailback questions. We'll do that all on today's show. So appreciate them, guys. We're going to get into it. First, before we get into all the NBA and bring Orlando in here, we'll talk about a little bit of news for you. What's going on in the world of sports that we've heard about? The news whip around.
Here's what's happening.
So, Dan, you tell me how big. We've heard the news today, and you actually wrote 2 articles today on Sterling Shepard, because you got. I think that's where your die came from.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard went down, and Will Fuller went down, but just with a broken collarbone. I don't think that's real serious unless he has a major setback, but typically that's like 6 weeks. Had a friend, real young in elementary school that broke his collarbone and was doing karate again in like a month. So, I don't think that's a real serious injury. He'll be all right. But it's big news that Will Fuller, one of the Texans' top wide receivers, did go down, but not as much serious. Dan says Sterling Shepard had a gruesome injury today. What happened, Dan?
Yeah, I got called out for that gruesome injury. I actually had an acquaintance that was at Giants training camp today, which was open to the public. And I asked him about it, and he had described it in a way that I portrayed maybe a little bit differently than what actually happened. So in the headline, I put it possibly out for season with gruesome injury. And, man, those Giants fans do not let you live it down, probably especially since I'm a Cowboys fan. Some of them may have known that, so they put even more hate on. But, once the reports came out, Ben McAdoo had said it was a severely rolled ankle and he should be okay. They're still waiting for further results, but I did update with another column with that, which appeased some. So Shepard, he got lucky today. Honestly, is what happened. He escaped major injury that really would have hurt the Giants' receiving core. They did add Brandon Marshall, but behind those three, ODB and Marshall and Shepard, it's pretty weak looking at their depth chart. So him escaping major injury is a relief for the Giants for sure today.
So I'm sorry, did I miss any kind of prognosis? Any idea?
Nothing yet. No, nothing that I've seen besides it being an ankle injury, not not a knee or anything like that. But severely rolled ankle. Still waiting, I think, for test results to come in.
Yeah. So we're always accountable for what we write, Dan.
Yeah, well, I own it though. I do, and that's one thing that I did put out, in the second piece today. Not necessarily apologizing. It was information that I thought was a little bit more credible than maybe it was. But I did, as soon as I found out, I did put that update out there. So, we do try and stay up with the breaking news at My Fantasy Sports Talk, something I pride myself in. So, the imagery of the headline will be looked at a little bit further from now on. Let's just say that.
Because you get those fans on you, like you're even dragging me into this. I, of course, tweeted out the story. I had someone else, Jamie210, shout out Jamie210 for checking out the article today and replying back to me, bless. After that was the second article that he was not injured, or not as gruesome as we thought. So that got me thinking, Dan. Because we're talking about, like I said, an ankle injury like this, the collarbone, even Will Fuller, but both these guys, particularly Will Fuller, I think, because you're looking at him projected to be back fairly early in the season, I think. How much does that hurt his draft stock in fantasy drafts, or do you think he's that type of player where, he probably wasn't going to be very, very high anyway? This is either you like him or you don't.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Will Fuller guy personally. I had him ranked as a bust coming out in the NFL draft last year. And he actually had an impressive rookie season from when he played. I believe he got hurt. So, he missed some time. But his speed is electric. The Texans, they have a bunch of receivers. It's like, who's going to get the ball? Obviously, you have DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller is your deep threat, but you still have Jalen Strong, Braxton Miller. You drafted, 3 receivers in the draft, so or have 3 rookie receivers on the team. So it's something where are all the balls going to go? So I don't have him too high in fantasy, and I don't expect his injury, be back by week 3, probably the latest. So I think he's draft double, but obviously very late, and depending on the format of the league, maybe not at all.
And so another guy like Sterling Shepard, let's just be optimistic here, and let's just say, you've had guys in the past like, Tom Brady, had to sit out his suspension, and Le'Veon Bell's done this a couple of times. So let's just say you're really thinking it's going to be at least 4 or 5 games to start the season for Sterling Shepard. How much does that hurt his draft stock? Because I think he was a little bit sexier name for some people who are high on him that were probably going to take a shot at him, thinking people are going to, shift their coverage and attention to ODB. Sterling Shepard, boom, it's going to be a big year.
Yeah, I was a guy who had Sterling Shepard in basically every league I was in last year. I was very high on him, where I thought Fuller was going to be a bust. I had Shepard as actually my number 1 receiver in that draft class last season. So I was high on him. I like his chances. Ankle injuries, though, scare me, especially with a shifty guy the way Shepard is. If that ankle isn't 100%, you don't know. One cut and it can give out again. So again, we'll have to wait for the prognosis. But that injury scares me a little bit more than Fuller's, even though Fuller's maybe more serious. The ankle, the way Shepard plays, it is kind of scary to take a chance on him, especially if you were going to target him in the middle rounds. I would say it kind of drops him back a couple of rounds at least until we know the full status of this injury.
Yeah. And that's a shame, because that's a guy I probably would have been fairly high on. I think maybe to try to steal in some, mid to later rounds. I think he's going to get production. So put a pause on that. But I got a feeling here, Dan, we're just getting started with these training camp injuries. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, those are considered somewhat big names, but I mean, they're not even considered stars necessarily on their own team. So could you imagine? We're going to hear that one big name. It's there every year of who goes out in training camp. So it's bound to happen, so it's only a matter of time, and I just wonder who it's going to be.
Yep.
Can't be Tony Romo this year.
Nope, not Tony Romo this year, but there's other Cowboys. Watch what you say.
Well, if it is Dak, then Tony will come back. So
you think so? I'm not even going to argue that at this point. I
think if Dak got hurt early enough, you would see Tony make a return to the Cowboys. I believe it.
I do too. I really do. I really, really do. All right, so MLB trade deadline, what went down? And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this in a different way and talk about Dan's Houston Astros specifically a little bit later with an MLB question that we got. But other than your Astros, other than that, just shockers that you didn't see more moves or who went where or what stuck out to you?
Yeah, not necessarily a whole lot of shocks. I mean, the Yu Darvish deal that came in, past actually the deadline was a little shocking in that respect. You kind of knew he was going to get moved. The Dodgers, I believe, won the trade deadline, and just the arms that they were able to accrue in Tony Cingrani, Tony Watson, and of course Yu Darvish. So they've solidified their bullpen, and they've given themselves not only that's number 2 starter behind Kershaw, but a righty, and they needed a right-handed pitcher. You had Kershaw a lefty, Alex Wood a lefty, Rich Hill a lefty. They had all these lefties in their mix, and not that one solid right-hander. So I love what the Dodgers did, and I think that makes them the favorite in the National League. A couple other moves that I liked was Jonathan Lucroy being traded from the Rangers to the Rockies. He's been kind of struggling this season, but you go to Colorado, you go to that area, you can hit a couple jacks and get your swing right. So I like what the Rockies are doing, competing with the Dodgers in that NL West. So those are 2 teams that I liked. You look at some other names like the Yankees and Red Sox. They made their moves, getting Sonny Gray, Todd Frazier, David Robertson for the Yankees, giving up a lot of prospects. But I like what the Yankees did. At least, the guys that they got are controllable for the near future, which is solid. The Red Sox, to me, were a big loser. Eduardo Nunez, did solid. But Addison Reed, they gave up 3 pretty decent prospects for. So their farm system is depleted. And I think in the future, you're going to see the Red Sox kind of go through what the Yankees have done the last few years, dealing with high-end contracts and not having a lot of young guys, despite their core being young at, in the middle of that lineup. We're going to talk about the Astros in a little bit, so I won't touch on them. But getting Francisco Liriano, while not too impressive, you'll hear my thoughts on that for our boy Jackson Borland, who, we didn't have a show last week. He sent me 8 messages, 8 questions. So I had plenty to pick through during our time off. So thanks for all those questions. Some of them were just stupid hate that I think he just likes to send me. So I'll give you a shout out again, Jackson. But we'll get to that.
We will get to that because I'm back on Jackson's bandwagon. We're buddies because the Yankees did go ahead and take that lead back in the AL East.
They did lose it again last night, though.
Okay, half a game, but still, the point is they're back. That division is by far over because, like you mentioned, some deficiencies of the Red Sox too. So they have them, and they hit their slump too. So yeah, it's still right there. It's still a race. But here's the thing, man. What the hell? What's up with the Dodgers, dude? Are they just going to sweep through this? I know you're going to say no because they're probably going to meet your Astros if we had to predict today. But why are the Dodgers so damn good?
They've always been a solid regular season team, but I mean they've done well with their farm system, not trading certain prospects and deals like they kind of did this summer. Trading away some prospects, but not their top level guys. So you see, Cody Bellinger, Jock Peterson come up through the minors and now make an impact right away, and add in the veterans that they already had. So the Dodgers have a solid ball club, but they don't do it in the postseason. Kershaw isn't always on his A game in the playoffs. The lineup always seems to go missing. So I kind of need to see it from the Dodgers on paper. I think without a doubt you should see them in the World Series, but until they actually do it in the playoffs, the jury's kind of still out on them. So I think you're going to see them cruise to the NL West championship and division title.
Yeah, I mean, your Astros are killing it. They got 6 more wins than the Astros.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they've won like 26 out of their last 31 ball games. I mean, it's insane the kind of run that they've gone on.
9 in a row.
Show me in the playoffs before, I put a crown and the trophy in your hand.
Colorado thought they were looking good for a while. Now they're like 14 games out. What is it? Yeah, 14 and a half games out. So, wow. What the Dodgers just finally got clicking there. So, but we'll talk more MLB just a little bit later on the show, guys. Appreciate the questions that we'll get to. So, Melo and the Knicks, and I only want to talk about this, Dan, because what I've heard, what I'm hearing, and I'm sure everyone's hearing it, of course, but from Stephen A. Smith, a lot of the updates here that we're getting in. The last I've heard those, that it's not really an option for Melo to return to the Knicks. Now, of course, he's under contract, right? So, the big hang up with him before has been that no trade clause, that he's got more and more particular, but he shouldn't be as particular now. So, I mean, are we saying some kind of deal is going to be made? Because Carmelo said another year with the Knicks is out of the question. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to see him play again in New York. I think he's just angling for either Houston or Cleveland at this point, and it's just tough because outside of Ryan Anderson with a huge contract, Houston doesn't really have any other parts that they can trade, and I don't think New York wants to take on that type of contract, and Cleveland just has nothing at all. So, Melo's destinations, I think, are very slim of where he wants to go, play with his buddies and have a chance to win. And it's not good options for New York. So New York is kind of in a tough position, but I think they're going to ultimately just deal him eventually, but not take the first offer that they've gotten.
See, that's the thing. They could probably get some more value in return from a young team. And just stick it to Carmelo, just send him to like Utah or someplace like that. Some places.
Portland supposedly wants him very badly.
But they got something they could offer.
But I mean, they have a bunch of guys. Get Swanigan in that deal, and the Knicks would probably easily take that. But who knows if he's going to want to go play out there.
Oh, yeah, would he waive that no trade clause for that stipulation? That's what if you really want out of New York bad enough, Carmelo, then you might start taking some of these deals if it's not going to be Houston and Cleveland, which I don't know. If I had to guess, I think, what we've heard is Houston is his top choice, and that's fine. Let that whole show just, combust in front of our eyes. I would love it. I would love it, love it, love it. That's almost like two of my most hated people in the NBA, and I hate's a strong word. I don't know them personally. I don't like them. I don't like them. We all have those people who just don't like them. Chris Paul's a crybaby, and I just think Carmelo's overrated. Could be the nicest guy in the world. I don't like those two guys. So let's put them on the same team. You guys know what I said about James Harden all year, this past year. I don't dislike him. I think he's a little overrated. A baller, yes. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, put them on the same team. Let it all combust. I'd be completely happy with that. So our last little bit of basketball talk before we talk about Kyrie and LeBron and bring Orlando in here is this LeVar Ball, the latest drama, Dan. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and of course you knew that he got tossed or walked out of an AAU game, pulled his team, right? You heard about that. We know that.
Power to BBB.
See what I deal with there? Dan is like the biggest LeVar fan, and I just don't understand it. So let me try to change his mind right here. Not sure he heard the full details of this one. So over this past weekend, his team was losing. It was either late fourth quarter overtime period, and he calls out a female referee refereeing this game, approved to be there by Adidas, whoever or does the hiring of the officials. And he points her out, calls her out, and tells, I guess, another official that, hey, we need someone in there. And I'm not quoting him verbatim. I don't remember the exact quote, but we need somebody in there who knows what the hell they're doing, basically, pointing directly at this female referee. She's qualified to be there. It's a referee. Give me a break. Your team's getting blown out. Anyway, threatens to pull his team off the floor if they don't replace that referee. Adidas approves an officiating move to replace the referee. They replaced the referee. He ends up getting another technical in overtime and getting tossed anyway. His team got the game was over. They didn't even play the full game. They just canceled the game while his team was getting whooped by 11, okay, in overtime. So disgraceful, man, disgraceful. You point out a female referee like that, and he doesn't have the best history with women. Let's face that fact, Dan. He does not. After what we heard about, and I know it may be a joking, maybe a parental teaching moment, what he said about his wife, when I don't care if the kids call her a bitch, whatever. I don't care how you talk to her, just don't expect her to take care of you if you treat her like that. Okay, that's fine, whatever, but still, it's not a way to approve of treating the mother of your children and your wife. We saw what with the girl with Colin Coward. I even forgot her name, Dan. But
Christine Leahy, she's terrible at everything she attempts.
You're a hater of her as well. So either way. But you had that incident, and now this issue with the female referee, and he's just a hothead. I don't know. You should see the Twitter videos and the videos out there of it, Dan, because he acts like an idiot. You know, he acts like a complete idiot while his players are just like, what's going on? And the other team is literally like, man, he's some garbage. You know, just it's ridiculous to see the way this guy acts. So now I want to know, after all of that, why are you such a lover of this guy? Or do you just are you appreciative of his marketing skill? Don't tell me you personally like this guy, dude, because he's just gone over the top way too many times.
No, I mean, I've never said I personally like him. I understand completely what he's doing, and I respect that. And yeah, a lot of it has to do with his marketing. You know, his parenting style, I don't necessarily always agree with, but I agree with the points and how he's doing it. But throughout all your conversation and you know, you teaching me this story, what I learned is you should really be mad at Adidas, not LeVar Ball.
You got a great point there. Adidas is taking a lot of heat for this, for not replacing that ref. But I mean, the point is, you have to see the videos of what really happened in the just stomping around the roll. You know, just he's not very bright, man. He's not very bright.
But if you don't stomp around, you're not a big baller.
But here's the thing. Okay, Dan, I got you there. But as far as I know, BBB sales ain't doing so hot. Never really did from the get-go, and this ain't helping. It's only going to get worse because he's seen as more of a clown. It's not a marketing ploy when you're continually seen as a clown, and now this is just really bad parroting / coaching, because you're not doing what's best for the kids. You're talking about a championship game here. You're going to pull your kids off the floor because you don't like a call or two in an AAU game and have a referee replaced and then get a technical anyway with the new ref and get tossed from the game anyway. It's more about LeVar, and that's what I've said from the get-go. That's why I don't like him. I don't care because he's so over the top with his self-promotion. It's taking away from his kids, and it's ridiculous. As a parent, wouldn't you want your kid out there? I don't know how many minutes these AAU games are. I don't know if they're 10-minute quarters, 8-minute quarters, whatever. When you want your kid out there the full amount of time, getting better and at least getting tape and just experiencing the whole thing, as opposed to you getting mad at an official, blowing up, stomping off the court, taking your team. That's sad, man. That's just sad. That's sad. It's all going to roll around, Dan. It's all going to roll around. You're going to see BBB is going to be a flop. Maybe a brand will pick it up as a subsidiary brand for a short period of time, and that's going to be it with it. It's going to be it with it. I'm not a marketing genius.
At least now you're giving him a deal, because before you said nothing that the companies wouldn't touch BBB. So at least now he's gotten you to a subsidiary deal, and I think
you know why?
LeVar knows. He's like, hashtag new breed is starting to come around. He's becoming a little bit of a baby baller right now. Baby baller. It's going to come to a big baller soon. That's LeVar right there. So.
Dan,
I like it. Brandon,
okay.
I appreciate that.
No, I didn't ever completely doubt that he wouldn't get a subsidiary or a contract with a major shoe company. But you know why? The reason I'm even giving that a glimmer of a hope now, if you had to name one reason why I'm giving that a glimmer of a hope right now, why do you think that is?
Lonzo is going to be a star.
Because Lonzo is balling. He balled. He balled in the Summer League and took home the Summer League MVP. Lonzo is balling. Although I still have my hangups about him a little bit, but ain't no doubt he's going to be a star in this league. I mean, he's definitely solid. He is definitely solid point guard on the Lakers day one, for sure.
So halfway through the NBA season, you are going to say Lonzo will be Rookie of the Year, because you're fighting it. You're fighting it.
Nope. It'll be Dennis Smith Jr. It'll be Dennis Smith Jr. before Lonzo.
Bookmark it.
Dennis Smith Jr. before Lonzo Ball. Bookmark that. So we'll see. We'll see as the season plays out. Brandon Ingram is the best young talent on that team. Let him get healthy. Now play with a new team. Brandon Ingram was a star a couple of games into Summer League, and then he kind of.
It was Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma was the star.
No, Dan. No, Dan has. Dan. We've talked about this. Kyle Kuzma has a really high ceiling. I think he could be really productive in an NBA environment. One of those just really guys that plays a really solid role, not to that second-tier star level. Brandon Ingram was take over the game stud level in the first couple of games of the Summer League till he got a sprained ankle, something. I don't know. Magic said, you're done. You're done. But anyway, That's LeVar Ball talk. I mean, oh my God, I'm so sick of it. Why do I keep doing it? But no, this had to be mentioned, though. This had to be mentioned because it was disgraceful, and I think he lost a lot of fans during this. This was a little bit too much, and Dan is still playing dumb with me on this. Whatever. Let's get Orlando in here, and we'll talk about that here in just a second and get his take on this Kyrie LeBron drama. What's going on? More NBA talk right after this. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. If you guys ever wonder why I just take a break like that every once in a while, because we're being aired on several different outlets. Sometimes we need commercial breaks, not here on the raw version of My Fantasy Podcast. If you watch live on YouTube, of course not. But sometimes through the various outlets like WBLZ Sports, they got to pay the bills. So if you're catching us on there, that's sometimes why I take a break. If you're watching the live raw footage, give you a little behind the scenes tip, right, Dan? Keep our viewers informed in case you wonder. Before I get hate mail on that, like, what the hell is he doing? Why is he always talking about be right back and he don't go nowhere?
I thought you were just looking at clips of LeVar Ball. Like you're looking down to the right. Oh, your picture of LeVar Ball down there. I just assumed that's what it was for. I gave you that time. That time was for you.
And you would be wrong again about that. Yeah. I'm pausing the whole podcast to watch clips of LeVar Ball. These clips ain't good, Dan. I'm telling you, these past clips ain't good. They ain't good clips. You need to watch it. But I don't know. Maybe our next guy has a little bit more sense than that to be on that LeVar Ball bandwagon. He is our local thespian from San Antonio, one of the hardest working men in the city. Work, school, play, all that. And then he does find time to act in local theater productions. Thank you. He is our man from San Antonio, Orlando Torres. What up, dude? Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, fellas? Just here down in the heat enjoying my lesbian ways.
I was going to say, okay, so since you brought it up, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I was going to say, yeah, Orlando's a lesbian. He digs the ladies. So, I mean, I don't see what's, anatomically incorrect about that, right?
Nah. How's it going, fellas?
No comment by Orlando.
So I know you've been here. I know you heard just your opinion. You probably saw the last LeVar Ball incident. What do you think, man?
Well, I think he gets away with a lot of it because he's just basically an independent. He has nobody telling him what to do. He does the big baller brand, with the Suns, but overall he doesn't have a guy behind him telling him
or
to
a
watch.
job. That's what. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll let you go and talk about this too. Maybe you know the answer to this, but I meant to ask it forever, and I've never asked anyone. What the hell does LeVar Ball do for a job? How do you get paid? I mean, is he a high school? I don't think he's a high school coach anywhere, is he? I mean, but does dude have a real job?
BBB.
No, before that ridiculous junk. I mean, what has LeVar Ball been doing to make a living the last 10 years is what I'm asking.
Hustling.
Orlando.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I know he was refereeing, but I'm not sure that's what he was doing to make all his money. I'm not too sure, so I can't answer that question fully. But I'm not sure what he was doing before that.
Yeah, I know what he's doing now, but anyway, your overall feelings of LeVar Ball, Orlando. We know how Dan feels. We know how I feel. Overall, what do you think?
I mean, well, he's quite a character. I don't hate everything he does, but down talking the female official, yeah, and something like that, I can't get behind with. I think they're at a point where the cameras are on him. His son's playing in LA, and he's gonna he's gonna keep running his mouth to stay in the spot. I think he does have to watch what he says, and come back to reality a bit. And I know he's LeVar Ball, but he's already made himself into a character. So I do think he needs to watch what he says, because stuff like that, is gonna get him backlash. Or and I know what he said. Yeah, he didn't gain a lot of support from people agreeing with what he said. So that's what and he's kind of said that's been, you look back at what he said kind of about Kyrie Irving's mom, which is kind of ridiculous too. So there's some stuff that's questionable about what he said.
Yeah, I just say give him enough rope. Honestly, it's going to happen. His true character is going to shine. I don't think ultimately a company like this, although Dan would disagree, BBB is going to be successful with a complete lunatic behind it like this. It's all going to hinge. And I'm talking about BBB as a separate brand. Now, BBB as, like me and Dan were talking about, a subsidiary group of like an Adidas or Nike or someone like that, because Lonzo Ball is truly balling out, needs a big shoe deal like that. I can see that for a period of time. But a BBB thing, nah, it's over. And as far as I've seen, I mean, I don't know. I think Lonzo is going to be the best of the three sons, to be honest with you. I really believe that. So this is the peak. This is the peak of your BBB, Dan. Just so you know that. Don't look to buy stock in LeVar Ball anytime in the next decade or so. My opinion. That's it. Kyrie, LeBron. What's going on with this? He said, she said, he said, and he leaked what? And all these tweets and backstabbing. We haven't talked about this on My Fantasy Podcast since really this whole story broke. So basically, Kyrie Irving wants out of Cleveland. He's sick of playing with LeBron. Kyrie then, I think, accuses LeBron's people of leaking that information out. Chauncey Billups is in the middle of this interviewing for the job, saying that he knew a week or so before this even happened that Kyrie wasn't happy. And I don't remember if he said that was part of the reason why he didn't take the job, but he definitely knew that there was some instability there, and Kyrie may be wanting to get out. What do we think about this whole thing, Orlando? I mean, it's almost too much now, and very shocking to happen.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, because that's basically all there is in the East is the Cavs, LeBron, and Kyrie. And to see this kind of fall apart, regardless of if he doesn't move or what, it's going to leave a pretty much sour taste in their mouth. I just think when Kyrie said that he saw that he was a trading piece when they were trying to acquire Paul George to the Cavs, I think that's when he felt kind of backstabbed, and he just wanted out. And I mean, you can't blame the guy for that. If he's Kyrie Irving's a pretty damn good player, and he's going to be in the shadow of LeBron as long as LeBron's there. But I guess that's what did it for him. That made him feel like he wasn't that much of an important asset to the team. I know there was an article coming out. I don't know how true it was, but it was from a reliable source saying that I guess LeBron was texting Kyrie from a new number, and Kyrie had texted back, "Who's this?" I guess throwing shade, and he even got Cleveland news stations throwing Kyrie under the bus or taking shots at him in commercials or in their local news station. So it is getting pretty ugly to see where he ends up. It's going to be pretty crazy following up. But this whole thing in Cleveland, it's not a good thing for them, and the whole league's just watching.
Yeah, no doubt. Dan, whose side of this are you on? Do you think that doesn't that make Kyrie seem a little bit selfish? Don't you think? Because is it what he's saying is like, I don't care about these NBA finals I'm going to. I want to be the man. I want to score 40 a game, and I'm tired of being second to LeBron. I don't care about team or championships. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see that with what Kyrie's doing. I don't necessarily blame him for it. If you want to go be the man and go market yourself, be your own type of brand like that, I guess go ahead. I mean, you don't want to wait until you're a free agent. LeBron is probably going to leave next year anyways by the looks of it.
Real quickly, isn't that kind of the opposite approach that that Kevin Durant took? I mean, and we bashed him for that, like, it's a cheap championship. And now I guess and I bashed him for that, of course, but now I'm kind of bashing Kyrie because he don't care about championship. He wants to be the man. I mean, you got to have a balance somewhere in between that, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Kevin Durant was the man in Oklahoma City. So, Kyrie definitely isn't in Cleveland. So if you want to be on the top of your game, be an elite NBA superstar, you have to be a little selfish. So, I don't necessarily blame him. I think it's a stupid idea. I mean, I would try and go win as many championships as you can with LeBron while you have him, because you're not going to have him for much longer.
That's not the philosophy the Warriors have, though. They are so unselfish. That's why they're going to continue to win titles as long as those guys together. I mean, it's just, I guess all of them appreciate title more because you just had Steph resign and Kevin Durant resign. Draymond and Clay are already wrapped up under contract. So all those guys have decided they would rather be together as a team and try to win championships as opposed to personal glory.
Yeah, well, I mean, Clay and Draymond, I think, are still on the rookie deals, or Clay signed it before he kind of blew up. But Steph and Kevin Durant both kind of had their time to shine as that solo act, where when Kyrie did, it was him as a rookie. So he was still on a bad team, wasn't a star completely yet. So I think he still wants to experience that and see what exactly it's like. And he's not going to be able to do that with LeBron on the team.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go because this is pretty late in the season to be finding this out. To me, that's the whole point. I mean, free agency is pretty much done, and it's going to be hard to find a landing place. I just don't know why this is coming out the way it's coming out so late in the summer. To me, it looks a little bit worse on Kyrie. I think personally, I think it kind of blindsides LeBron, but. We got an NBA mailbag question that's going to get to exactly this. So why don't we do that? Because it really kind of takes it to the heart of the matter and is exactly what I was going to say here about Kyrie Irving. So when I first read this question, I thought it said Spurs just glancing through it. And I was about, Orlando, I got to get his take on this. It didn't say Spurs, it says Suns. But it comes from Austin Harrington. Appreciate the NBA question, the season that never dies. NBA, baby. Not MLB, as Dan tried to push that nonsense on us a couple months ago. Here we go. Austin Harrington. Question goes to this. As a Spurs fan, I keep hearing that we should make a move for Kyrie in a trade, and a lot of my fellow Suns fans do not want to trade Josh Jackson, the rookie. But I think we need to guarantee a star like Kyrie. Jackson could become one, but he's not yet, and you never know if he'll become one. So the deal should be Jackson, Bledsoe, maybe a pick for Kyrie Irving. You agree with this trade deal for the Suns? Shut up, my fellow Suns fans. Austin Harrington. So before I get into the depth of my response to this question, we did have Kevin McQuaid chime in today, right, Dan? And he pretty much said no. So, but reading this question again, I don't know that that's such a horrible deal on paper as far as value. Jackson Bledsoe for Irving, then maybe some sort of crazy pick. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad deal reading it a second time, but no, because what I think you just got in the draft this year was, I think, the best talent in the draft in Josh Jackson, although Jason Tatum's been looking really good. But I believe that you got the best talent in the draft. And I just personally, after what we just talked about, Kyrie Irving, I don't think I would really want him on my team because what he just told me is that he is selfish and don't care about team. That's just what he told me by his actions. But now if you could package up something similar to what Houston gave the Clippers for Chris Paul, then I'm kind of for that because I don't think the Clippers really missed any major talent. Now they gave up, Houston, I think they gave up a lot. So when I'm saying similar deal, I mean, not as much, but something similar to that as far as giving up any kind of major piece, then I would consider it. But Kyrie lost my confidence last month by basically admitting that he is selfish and he don't care about team goals. So great scorer, but I cannot play a lick of defense. I don't think he's that transcendent player that's going to take you to many more wins if you're the Suns, especially if you give up a potential like Josh Jackson and then, of course, another one of your better players in Eric Bledsoe. You're not getting any better like that. Yeah, you got Kyrie Irving. You may sell some tickets because people are going to watch him score 40 points per game like he wants, but you're not any better. You're not fighting for a playoff position like that. You have to accumulate talent. I preach this almost every podcast. You don't get better by trading a major piece for someone who might be a slightly major piece. You got to add piece after piece after piece. This doesn't do it for the Suns. So I don't agree with this particular trade for the Suns. It's very interesting, though, as to who all is looking for Kyrie Irving now. Even someone like the Suns think they got a shot, and they're trying to put together a package for him. So I don't know. Who wants to go next?
I'll touch on it just briefly. For any team that's going to trade him, I mean, there was a report today that Irving, isn't going to commit to that team to whoever trades for him. So, it's a small market team like the Suns that would scare me off completely, where I wouldn't make a deal. I'm hesitant to make the deal that's in question here, Josh Jackson and Eric Bledsoe. I think Bledsoe has to be a part of it, but if you can somehow maneuver maybe like a TJ Warren or an Alex Len as that other piece instead of Josh Jackson, I think that'll work out better. But ultimately, if you can't get Kyrie Irving to commit beyond the length of that contract, you're giving away young, talented pieces you can build around.
You got Josh for at least 3 years,
Right, and then I believe there's even team options that you can exercise possibly after that. So, so making it even more 4. So I think Irving would have 2 seasons completely if you get him, before the season starts. And to me, that's just not enough if you're a team like the Suns who needs a little bit more time than just that first or second year to compete.
And that's exactly what else I had in my notes about this deal, is that if you're the Suns and you're a borderline 6 to 8 seed, maybe you consider it, because that may push you into a level of maybe you're a 3 or 4 seed. If you had that much talent to already be a 6 to 8 seed or in the middle of the playoff hunt, but the Suns are far from that. You're not getting any better by doing that. You have a superstar on your team, but nothing else. And that's when you're I think the second worst team in the West. They were first or second worst team. I don't remember the West. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Your turn.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't jump on this deal either if I'm the Phoenix Suns. I was going to touch, basically bite out the same thing Dan was saying is, if you get Kyrie, there's a chance that he's not even fully committed to that team. So that is a very scary thing. I can't fully blame Kyrie for wanting to leave. I mean, you think about the same thing if he went to Indiana for Paul George. He's basically in the same situation, because as long as LeBron's in the East and he's not on the same team with them, they're not going. They might make the playoffs, but they're not going to the Eastern Conference Finals or to the finals. So it's going to be hard seeing a team that could get him. But with the talent that with Bledsoe and Josh Jackson at Phoenix has, I would just keep that and go ahead and just start building your team with, because you got the pieces right there. You go ahead and get those pieces. You don't really have any much building blocks around Kyrie. Besides him selling tickets, I don't even know if he's going to sell the tickets the way he thinks he is, but putting up those points. So I wouldn't do this trade if I was the Suns.
No, I have to agree. So Kyrie wants out. What other kind of landing spots have you guys possibly been hearing about? Orlando, you heard about anybody else as a really high destination that he might want to go? Or if you just had to guess a top 3 or something like that, what do you think?
Well, I think New York definitely comes to mind. I know, being that he's from there, he's pushed heavily to get traded to the Knicks. But
that's somewhere where you could be the man for sure. And then you even have a decent piece in Kristaps Porzingis. So, and I just saw a tweet earlier today about him possibly wanting to play his whole career and retire in New York. So that's not bad.
But then I saw too that the Cavs want Porzingis in return, and the Knicks are not wanting to give that up. So I'm not too sure.
I definitely would not.
Exactly. So I don't know how that works out. I've heard Minnesota. I've also heard the Spurs. But realistically, that wouldn't work down here. Just too many pieces to move. And, same thing, if he's not committed to the Spurs, we're giving away a lot of pieces for someone who's not going to stay long term. It's not worth it. And I'm not too sure about Minnesota, but if you were to go to Minnesota, that'd be a pretty damn scary team out west. But I'm not sure how realistic that is happening as well, too. I'm sure a lot of stuff would have to happen for a huge trade for that like that to happen.
Dan, you heard any other places for Kyrie?
Yeah, I mean, most of the ones that he listed, I've definitely heard. A sleeper team is Pat Riley, Miami Heat. I can see them kind of packaging a deal with maybe Goran Dragic and a couple of the mid-level pieces that they kind of have to get Kyrie. Who knows what it's going to take, if the question is what Cleveland will take for him, if they're willing to just let him get off their team and they'll take kind of those mid-level type guys or maybe some draft picks, which, I don't necessarily think is the smart idea. But, he's only going to have a limited places if you're trying to get the highest return, and then Kyrie not committing to that team is ultimately, I think, going to hurt the deal.
But you think about it too, like if Kyrie's going to leave, even if he stays this year and he's going to try to, hit the door next year, same thing with LeBron if he leaves next summer. You got to think that at some point Cleveland's going to try and get what they can before they both bolt on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, if Kyrie's set on not playing, I think they're going to definitely look to move him. I think LeBron is kind of untouchable, but I think ultimately, if Irving is adamant about it, you're going to probably see him moved maybe when training camp starts or right around that point in time.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for those guys to play together next year. And if then Kyrie does leave, I'm not so sure LeBron has the loyalty to the city anymore and Dan Gilbert after bringing them a title. He's done it once to not do it again and bounce again. So I don't know. This is weird, though. This is kind of a weird drama to be playing out over the NBA offseason. And we'll see how it goes. Austin Harrington, I would say no, man. Don't do it. If I'm the Grizzlies, if you could offer Conley and some bench player or a pick for Kyrie Irving, I don't want it because the dude has just told me he's selfish. He's in it for himself, not the team. No, thank you. Next. So, but that's the Kyrie and LeBron drama and your NBA talk for this week. When we come back next, we're going to be telling you about the myfantasysportstalk.com fantasy league draft, which you can be a part in, when it is, all that, and of course answer NFL fantasy mailbag questions. We'll do that next. You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. Appreciate it, everyone. This is Brandon Reed along with Dan Shaw and Orlando Torres, and we have set a date for the My Fantasy Sports Talk Fantasy Football League Draft. It's a big happening, okay? And you can be a part of it and join our league if you're one of the first ones to apply, basically. Dan, we set a date, August 23rd. It's going to be 7:15 Eastern time because you know why? We're going to put it live on My Fantasy Podcast. So you want to take advantage. You want to get involved.
Yeah, for sure. I put out a message on our Facebook page. If you're interested in joining us, I think we have 3 to 4 open spots. We have 2 pending invites to fans and listeners of the show and site. So you can play along with us. You really only have to worry about me and Brandon. Orlando bye week. So no worries there. So come on, send us a message. Comment and we'll get you set up on the league, especially if you can make the draft. We don't want no auto pickers. So August 23rd, 7:30. We did change the time. It's 7:30, not 7:15.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Just to give Brandon a little bit extra time to set up, get his notes, and make himself look all ready to go because we will be going live on the My Fantasy Podcast for the draft.
Wait.
Champ. I got a lot at stake. Defending champ.
How many people do we have who want to actually join the league? Is it quite a list built up, or is it kind of?
No, we still need a couple more guys to a couple more fans of the show to come on. I have two pending invites waiting, but we only give them so long. We're not waiting all day for these people. So we have 2 pending, and I think we have 1 or 2 more that are definitely available. So up to 4.
I was gonna say, just for the fans. I mean, it doesn't have to happen. Make it a little fun. Give it write to the league. Tell them why they should be in the league. That's just an option. I think that'll be pretty fun.
They might be asking why you're in our league.
Hey.
Be careful.
Hey, I found my way into the league, so that's it. I'm in, and that's all. That's all I'm gonna
All right, so basically, we'll have a contest. Write to us why you should take Orlando's spot in the league, and the best one will win.
Hey, that's just fine. Funniest response. I want to hear them. I mean, I want to hear them. from the question I got last week. I want to see what else these people come up with.
You know those leagues where people like the losing the last place guy has to get like a tattoo of something? You've seen that before, little crazy bets on these fantasy leagues. Maybe that's what we start doing. The last place finish gets kicked out of the league for a year and gets replaced by a fan if it's not a fan already. So maybe that's what we ought to start doing. So that gives all the writers at My Fantasy Sports Talk a little bit more incentive to do well and keep up with it and play week after week after week and go through the grind, because you might get booted.
I like it. Great idea. We will propose that tomorrow to the writers.
That'll be a great wake-up call for Christian Mina.
Yeah. All right, we'll see if that can actually happen. But August 23rd, it's going to be a Wednesday. It's going to be live on the podcast, My Fantasy Podcast, and it's going to be 7:30 Eastern time for all you guys. So the fans who want to get involved, try to get involved with us. Let us know. Contact us, and see if you can get involved in that. And if not, watch it live and see how it all folds out here on My Fantasy Podcast. It's going to be interesting. Cannot wait to start defending my title. Let's talk about questions. Okay, it's gonna be questions here from myfantasysportstalk.com nation. Orlando, I'm playing a hater today. This is a hater themed show. So Hal McCarthy, this dude right here, it's close to a kicker but not really. Sleeper defense for this season, and by sleeper defense I mean not a defense that will come off the board in the early to mid rounds. So looking for that sleeper defense, probably not a top 10 pick that you may think. Orlando, what do you think? Question number 1 from Hal McCarthy. What up?
Oh, man, we're waiting for sleeper defense. I think he stays with the hot-hand San Diego Chargers. I know they're 5-11 last season, but they finished right as a top 10 defense. So that's a team that might not even get drafted, or it's going to go really late, depending on how big the league is. So I would aim for a team like the San Diego Chargers. You got Melvin Ingram there, Brandon McBain, pretty good defensive unit. The offense needs work, but that's a good defensive unit. And I would say the Jacksonville Jaguars, just throw another one out. I think the way they're building their team just around the run and their defense, those are two sleeper defenses I would totally aim for. To begin with, defenses going in the middle rounds is just ridiculous. If you're going to be the guy to take the Seattle Seahawks in the 8th round, go ahead. But that's just uncalled for. But the Los Angeles Chargers, I would definitely aim for.
All right, there you go. Dan, let me hear from you. I want to hear what you say. I'm scared we might pick the same thing, but probably not. Go ahead.
Nope, probably not. Cowboys, sleeper
man.
defense, baby.
What do you think they're preseason ranked right now? I mean, what level are they? Are they like
they're ranked?
They're not
in early 20s, early to mid 20s.
Okay.
Rank of a defense. I like what they did. They lost a lot of pieces, but at the same time, they got younger, they got faster, and I think overall their talent is better. When you look at a Jalen Smith coming back healthy this year, he was going to be a top 5 pick last year before his injury. And all reports are, I mean, he's fully healthy, ready to go, 100%. He's been, participating fully in training camp with pads. So that makes my heart flutter a little bit, just watching him paired up with Sean Lee. And then the secondary, the Chidobe Awuzie, paired with Byron Jones. You still have Orlando Scandrick, Jordan Lewis, who you drafted. You signed Nolan Carroll. So I like the pieces that they have to turn over the ball more. And then anytime you have Rod Marinelli as your defensive coordinator, he can coach up that defensive line to be able to rush the passer. So I expect better production this year out of that unit. And then not only in fantasy are you drafting the defense, but you're also drafting the special teams. And the Cowboys, I think, are going to have some elite returners with Ryan Switzer and Cole Beasley back there. Switzer was a game changer at North Carolina in the return game, and I expect him to be so with the Cowboys. So I definitely I have Dallas on my sleeper radar. You could probably wait until the last or second last round to draft them, because unless you're with a diehard Cowboys fan who's overly optimistic like me, you're not going to get a lot of people to draft them even in the later rounds. This is late. And then just the team in the mid to late rounds that kind of jumped off the screen when I was looking at my rankings, the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas in a couple years. But on Fantasy Pros, one of the sites I contribute to, they are the 18th in ADP, average draft position. They have the 18th most drafted defense. So 17 other defenses drafted ahead of them. Anytime you have Khalil Mack who can put up 25 sacks, you know they're going to rush the passer. They might allow some points, but for a sleeper, I like from where they're being drafted the value that they'll offer.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be that bad. What do you think their preseason ranked?
They're right now their ADP is the 18th ranked defense. So
Yeah.
17 defense are being drafted before them in fantasy drafts at this moment.
Yeah. So mid-teens, I would think. It's not bad. But I'm coming way from behind on you guys, and I hate to be a homer because this team's defense sucked last year, but it's the Tennessee Titans, and the reason I believe that is because I still got confidence in Dick LeBeau. He needed some pieces, some talent. They concentrated on getting better offensively since John Robinson took over, which I agree with because they really weren't that good at all. But now they finally concentrated on defense and signed Logan Ryan and Jonathan Cyprien. And here's the thing, folks. It wasn't necessarily their line or their poor rush play. It's just their pass defense was worst last year, worst in the NFL. So they needed to address that, and they did with Jonathan Cyprien. And, of course, Logan Ryan, then drafting Denorius Searcy, which I know, Dan, you like Denorius Searcy, right?
No, God, no. Why would I like that guy?
Well, I'll tell you what. He was drafted 18th, and John Robinson liked him, so I have confidence in him.
Denorius, are you talking about the same guy?
Denorius Searcy?
The old Buffalo Bill?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Adoree Jackson.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah.
Jackson, yes. I do like Adoree Jackson. Denorius Searcy, no, you can cut him right now.
Yeah, I got the does I got the does confused here. Sorry, said the wrong name. You should have called me out on that. But no, yes, of course, Adoree Jackson drafted 18th this year. Yeah, you like him, right?
Yeah, especially in the return game. Like I said, with the Cowboys, with Switzer, Adoree Jackson is just as dangerous returning punts and kicks. So, I don't know if they're going to use him like that, but I would imagine they would.
That's a huge leap, though. Are you trying to give McCarthy negative points for the season? I mean, he wants a sleeper defense.
Anyway, back to these Titans. Derek Morgan, he had close to a career year last year. Well, he did have a career in sacks last year, and Brian Arakpo almost did. So, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily the pass or the rush game that was the Titans' problem. That pass defense was deplorable, and I think they made great strides in that. And they were definitely going to be outside the top 10 projected defenses, I would think, in most drafts. So ADP, what's that for them, Dan? Have you been?
I actually did look at the Titans. They were right with the Cowboys in the early to mid 20s, so probably 23, 24 is where they were being drafted. So definitely have value there.
So, I mean, I just think they're going to be a much better defense, better defensively in the defensive pass game, and be a playmaking defense as well, with some sacks and possibly some picks out there, at least better coverage. So do you think that has a shot, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, they were a team that I definitely looked at. They've definitely made some moves. I think they're improving. I don't necessarily think you're gonna see them jump maybe into the top 5. But if you're drafting them in as the 20th ranked defense, let's say, and they give you top 13 level, that's great value in fantasy football. And that's kind of what you have to take away is value from where you draft your players or defenses in this case. So listen, the Titans are going to be AFC South champions, so you're going to win some games. So your defense has to play pretty well.
Oh, I agree. I think they're headed towards AFC South champs, and I just think they could be had from rounds 14 on, and I think that's going to be a pretty good value pick over what they're going to produce. I really do. I don't think anybody's looking at the Titans defense, especially after last year, and I think they're going to be better than that. I think they're going to surprise. Now, if you want a killer home run defense, and you're probably not picking the Titans, but I think they're going to be a sleeper pick, which is exactly what Hal McCarthy is looking for. Hal McCarthy. So that's our take on that. Sleeper defense. Not really click kicker, but it's close. In some weeks it is. Appreciate the question. Next one comes from Raymond Tedesco. Who would you rather have in this deal? Mike Evans and Derrick Henry, or Larry Fitzgerald, and Marshawn Lynch. I have Fitz and Lynch and was offered this trade. Do I take it? Says Raymond Tedesco. So Orlando is someone who I know who had Mike Evans last year in our league, I think, didn't you?
Yes.
So what do you think, man? Mike Evans and Derrick Henry was technically a backup running back, or Larry Fitz and Marshawn Lynch, who is technically a backup running back?
You take Mike Evans and Derrick Henry. This is ridiculous. I would jump on that trade in a hurry. I mean, not only are you upgrading a wide receiver as a possibly top 5 guy, I mean, if for some reason DeMarco Murray goes down, or even if he does it, they work in Derrick Henry a bit more. You got a pretty good RB2, RB3 right there, with possibly a starting running back if anything were to happen to Murray. I do like Larry Fitz. I think last year he set the record, or maybe just last season I think he had 109 receptions in Arizona, which is pretty good. But he's getting a little bit up there, and you got to worry about Carson Palmer. If Carson, if he gets hurt, and if he's going to be able to keep, I don't know, he's going to be able to keep throwing the ball at his age, and Drew Stanton doesn't make you feel better, and they got David Johnson there, so they're going to be running the ball a lot. So I would definitely take this trade in a hurry. And while Lynch could be pretty good for Oakland, you still got DeAndre Washington there. You got some pretty good running backs behind Lynch, and the coaching staff for Oakland has already came out and said that they want to try and limit Lynch's carries to around 200 or less. So just hearing that, I would take the upside with Derrick Henry, and I would definitely upgrade from Fitz to Mike Evans in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue there. So give me Mike Evans all day long. I think Evans is going to be a top 5 fantasy producing wide receiver this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Overall, I think he's by far the best player fantasy-wise in this whole group. I don't know that I have confidence in Fitz's production anymore as he approaches. What is he? I think he's 34 this year, maybe 35 at some point in the year.
He's just one of those. Yes, I know he's just one of those guys. I'm not too much worried about his production. I'm more worried about Carson Palmer, and they're going to run the ball a lot. So I think that's what lead me towards making that trade in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, either way, production is going to go down, I say, this year. That's if he stays healthy, because dude has been a warrior. He's been a beast as far as health goes out there. He doesn't miss games in his career. And so I just think he may be due for that. Hate to wish injury, and I don't wish it upon him. He's been dodging a bullet for many years as far as the injury bug goes, so he may be due. And then, I don't know, I think from hearing some things out of Titans training camp reports that Derrick Henry is looking good. Fans like him, and I think they're going to be okay if something were to happen to DeMarco Murray. And I think Derrick Henry's probably in line to get a little bit more workload this year anyway, in being in his second year. So I think you're going to be okay there. I really think as far as Henry and Lynch goes, it's almost negligible, but overall, what I'm saying is that Mike Evans is so far above all these dudes that I think that Mike Evans could almost just about have as much production as Fitz and Lynch combined. Me personally, that's what I really think. So ultimately, Mike Evans way up here, the other guys down there that I'm saying. Who did he have anyway? He had Fitz and Lynch, and I say, do this trade right now before it goes away. Dan.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. For me, Henry and Lynch cancel each other out. They're going to give you the same type of production in my eyes. So it's all about Mike Evans here. You want that. He's going to be I haven't brought out my wide receiver rankings. I'm actually working on them, but he's my number 2 ranked wide receiver entering the season right now. So it makes sense with Jameis Winston being my number 1 quarterback. Of course, Mike Evans will be in that top group. So I love Mike Evans this year. I think he's going to be fantastic. You can give Henry back to him if you want and just take Mike Evans, because that's all you need.
I agree with that. I do. Mike Evans is so far above there. Let's see. Who was it? Raymond Tedesco? Do the trade quickly before it goes away. Appreciate it. That was an easy one. Mike Evans all day. So let's go from Rock to Bells. To Rock the Bells. I'm sorry, D-Rock Bell. From D-Rock Bell here. Give me a top 10 player in any position that will be a bust. No fringe top 10 players here Be men. Have balls. Take a risk. Sick of you guys pansy stuff. So this is gonna be a show of hate, man. God, I want to be like this dude, D-Rock Bell. No pansy stuff, Dan. You have balls sometimes, but they're usually filled with stupid, outrageous predictions. That was actually clean. It could have been worse than that. Dan's balls could have been filled with a lot of different stuff. So outrageous predictions is not too bad. Thank you, pansies. Rock the bells. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, well, I this one made me laugh. So
you even
thanks.
remember the question?
Thanks, D-Rock. I'm giving you busts. I'll bring two to you. I actually wrote an article listing 5 fantasy busts. I'll give you one that's on the article and one that's not. Number one in that article that I wrote is Russell Wilson. From where he's being drafted, his ADP right now is the 5th overall quarterback selected, which to me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Their offensive line is terrible. Seattle didn't do anything really to upgrade in the offseason. Pro Football Focus ranked them as the 32nd unit, so they're not going to be able to protect Russell Wilson, and they're not going to be able to run the ball consistently, which will be even worse for the passing game. He's coming off his worst statistical season when you're looking at touchdowns, only 21, a career high in interceptions at 11, his lowest rushing yards in a season at 259, only 1 rushing touchdown. That's what made Russell Wilson so valuable in fantasy, is his ability to scramble and run the ball for not only yards but touchdowns, and he hasn't been able to do it. You can say, yeah, he was injured a little bit last year, but I think a lot of it has to do with that terrible offensive line play. The weapons on their offense, they have some nice backs. They have Doug Baldwin. They have Paul Richardson, who's an ex-Colorado buff who I love, but he hasn't been able to produce at an NFL level. So Russell Wilson will definitely be my number one bust. Stay away from him, especially for where he's being drafted. I mean, 5th quarterback overall, an average of 55th overall, which is about the 5th round in most drafts. I wouldn't touch him that early. I wouldn't touch a single quarterback that early personally, but definitely not Russell Wilson. And the second bust, we touched on it earlier, of who we just mentioned, that's Marshawn Lynch. At 31 years old, taking a year off, he's coming off not only retirement, but when he did play an injury-riddled season where he ran for 400 yards, he wasn't really productive at all. And I just like the other backs on Oakland's roster a little bit better, who are going to win touches and be more productive. So Lynch is being ridiculously overdrafted as well. I've seen him go as high as 5th overall, and his lowest in most drafts is around 22nd overall. So that's a second-round pick in most drafts, which to me is crazy. I don't see that value there for where he's being drafted. So those are 2 busts that I have that are technically right now being drafted as top 10 players in their positions. So D-Rock, I hope that was a strong enough take for you.
I don't know that I blame the drafters for the Marshawn Lynch thing, Dan. I don't know that any major publication or sports website or ESPN or any kind of draft rankings are really drafting Marshawn that high as like a top 10 fantasy player, period. I think that's just some crazy optimistic Marshawn Lynch fan.
Yeah, so his average ADP is 18th overall.
Wow.
Yeah, he ain't a top 20 fantasy player.
And that's on publications. That's on Fantasy Pros, which takes accumulation of all of the websites and their draft data and puts it together. So, I mean, that's actually how they are. I mean, it is how they're being drafted by the drafters. So maybe not.
Right, but I'm saying just your own,
yeah, but that's
your own thoughts and common sense here.
it takes accumulation of all those sites. So, I mean, it's legit data that's on there, and it's wildly surprising. And if I'm in those leagues, I am fans of those owners. That's a Zeke virus, a Zeke and destroy your own team move.
Ooh, that's exactly what I was just thinking. It's not Orlando, but I'm thinking, yeah, I'm very happy to be in leagues and drafts with those guys drafting him that high. Not that I hate him, we've talked about this before. I like him as like a 3rd, 4th round pick if I have to get a running back, but no, not a top 20 fantasy.
He's not an RB1. That's basically
exactly.
He's not an RB1.
Exactly.
I would view him more as a flex, not even an RB2. But if you need one, yeah, RB2, that's where you would probably take him.
Yep, there you go. Orlando?
All right, yeah, this might be a little edgy for maybe even for D-Rock, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Jordy Nelson. And just being from where he's drafted, I think he's definitely going in the first round, whether in the mid or late first round. But I've seen him go a lot within as a top 5 wide receiver. And although there's a chance that he could still show a strong outing this season like what he did last year, you got to think at age 32 that there's got to be a drop off coming, at some point in time. You look at Martellus Bennett, who just recently joined the team. He's going to be a big red zone threat, which Jordy Nelson was last season. But you got to think that those priorities go spread out a bit more. And I honestly no longer think Jordy Nelson is going to be the number one. I know wide receiver there. I know he's got Aaron Rodgers who always has an eye for him. But I think Randall Cobb is on somewhat of a bounce back season. Hopefully he is. And I think the man there going forward is going to be Davante Adams. I know he had a pretty crazy season last year, but I think he continues it. I think that we continue to see Davante Adams grow as a player and gain Aaron Rodgers' trust more. And Nelson's always going to be a threat there, but I don't think he gets near the numbers he put up last season. I think it was like 1,600 yards, and I know the touchdowns are ridiculous, but I don't see him getting double-digit touchdowns either. I was looking at some mock drafts, and even doing some of the mock drafts, he was going as wide receiver 4, which is, that's just a little too crazy if you ask me. Looking at some of the guys that are going after him, Mike Evans is going after him. I'd rather have Mike Evans than Jordy Nelson. AJ Green was going after him. I'd probably rather have AJ Green than Jordy Nelson as well. I know AJ Green is coming off an injury from last season, but I'll take the chance on AJ Green rather than a Jordy Nelson. Michael Thomas and T.Y. Hilton went after him. I'm not touching T.Y. Hilton early, especially with Andrew Luck missing 6 games. I could see that, and I'm pretty sure T.Y. Hilton's his rankings are going to get adjusted regardless anyway. What Andrew Luck missing. Michael Thomas is a toss-up, but then Dez Bryant comes along, and I'd probably rather have Dez Bryant as well over Jordy Nelson. So that's what I would say. If I could grab Jordy Nelson in the late second round, early third, which I highly doubt, but if he were to fall to me, late second round, early third, I'll take a guy like Jordy Nelson. But to take him anywhere in the first or early second is just absurd to me. And I would rather take a guy like Dez Bryant, AJ Green, and Mike Evans over Jordy Nelson from where he's going currently.
Woohoo! Orlando on fire, breaking it all the way down. And let me tell you what, Orlando, I started with Michael Thomas on this list, and I feel the same way you do about him. But then I trickled down, and I got a little bit further, and I'm like, okay, the guy I'm really going to stick with is considered for sure a wide receiver 1, for sure, no doubt, and is in the top 10 consensus from everything I can tell, and he's not going to be very good this year. Well, he's going to be overrated. We'll just say that. He's going to be overrated. And that's the other guy you mentioned, T.Y. Hilton. Not a big fan at all. Truth is, dude is 5'9", and he's inconsistent. And the truth also is that the Indianapolis Colts offensive line is so bad, and Andrew Luck has struggled so bad as of late that he's going to throw whenever, to whomever he can. He's not going to be able to just single out a 5'9" target all day long. And I think T.Y. Hilton's kind of been overrated from the get-go. So I think they're going to finally be last in that AFC South this year. I think it's the year. I think you see a major decline there. And there's other guys on that team that could really step up and really produce, and is going to leave you in that kind of that hole on a lower level of what the Green Bay Packers used to have with the Jordy Nelson and with the Randall Cobb and who was the other guy? Greg Jennings. Yeah, Greg Jennings. So you never knew from week to week, but I think the Colts are going to have a little bit of that this year with a spread out amount of talent, because I think some guys on that team are just as talented as T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief, Kamar Aiken, Philip Dorsett, even Chester Rogers is climbing up the depth chart right now. So I think you just got to mix. None of those guys that I just mentioned, I could honestly say that, yeah, you ain't ever going to be a T.Y. Hilton. I guess that's what I'm saying. And he's right around 8, 9, 10 in most of the projections that I see. So my answer is T.Y. Hilton. Dan, do you remember his ADP?
Yeah, I actually have Nelson's and Hilton's here. So Nelson right now is the 6th overall wide receiver and 13th overall draft position. T.Y. Hilton, 9th overall, 18th ninth wide receiver, 18th overall draft position. So all top first or at least second round picks, depending on where they're being drafted.
Well, I gotta say, Hilton has changed drastically. Maybe not completely drastically, but without luck there for the first 6 weeks, possibly the 6 weeks is what it's looking like. I'm sure he's going to get pushed on a bit more. So I guess from what we have right now, that's where he's going.
Yeah. What's your latest on that, Dan? Because you had a piece out about that today, which you took some heat on too as well, right?
Yeah. That one I was a little bit more confident in. I talked with your friend Brandon, Greg Doyle. You said how much you respected his
he was on Memphis radio
today.
Yeah, every Wednesday.
So I shot him a message last night and was talking to him about Andrew Luck. He doesn't think he's going to miss any regular season action. He thinks he's going to miss the entire training camp. I put out a piece today saying that, and I also quoted another journalist in the Indianapolis area who also said the same thing, quoting the Colts GM Chris Ballard, who said we still expect him to be activated from the PUP list before Week 1 starts. So, I think they're going to look at Andrew Luck and say, who else do we have? We're going to just put him in there. And Doyle actually pointed out the fact that he thinks it's actually going to be Luck that forces their hand. He's going to be the one that wants to go out there and play and give it all and not be able to take no for an answer ultimately.
Wow, okay. Because who is their backup? Tolzien? Who is their backup?
Insert random white guy. Who does it even matter?
It doesn't matter who your quarterback is. So that's why I'm saying no on T.Y. Hilton. But, yeah. Great question, Pansy, D-Rock Bell. Hope that was concrete enough for you, dog. Let's go to someone a little bit more polite, just with a little slight misunderstanding, chap. That's Javier Cedeno. Javier says, funny story, Brandon used to call Orlando a thespian on your show, and for the first couple of times, I thought he was calling him a lesbian. Go 49ers. That's Javier threw that in there, not me, which is, I think, a little bit of a funny, stereotypical, ironic twist. How this is all tied together.
Catch that.
So I assume he's a 49ers fan because the question does follow as this with 49ers interest. So who on our offense has the best chance of being fantasy relevant? Don't say Hyde because he sucks the big one. And that's Javier Cedeno's words, Hyde, not mine. So Orlando, our local lesbian, take it over, dog. What do you say about them 49ers?
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with Jeremy Curley. You look at, some of the numbers he put up last season. I believe it was with Kaepernick as well. He had 667 yards and 6 touchdowns, which it isn't good, but it's not bad either. I know towards the end of the season he just went missing. But you look at the defenses they played during the end of the season. They played New England, Miami, Chicago had a pretty good defense, the Jets, Atlanta, and the Rams. Those are all tough defenses. But overall their defense is going to struggle, and they're going to be behind a lot in games. And Brian Hoyer is not he's not a bad quarterback. Brandon Hoyer, everywhere majority of the teams he's played for in the league, Brandon Hoyer has delivered. I mean, he's not a playoff guy or player like that, but Brian Hoyer is a pretty good, viable NFL quarterback.
I was about to say, who's this Brandon Hoyer you keep talking about? I think the 49ers want him.
Brian Hoyer. I was messing up Brandon in there, Mr. New Breed's in there. But yeah, Brian Hoyer. So, they're going to go ahead and throw the ball. They're going to be behind a lot in games. I know Garcon is there, but I'm going to go with Jeremy Curley. From what I've seen, I think he can go ahead and build on that, especially with the guy like Brian Hoyer.
There you go. I look at the 49ers offense, and I just think, God, it's a mess, man. I don't. There's no sexy picks there. Dan, let me hear your take.
Yeah, I have two guys. One is our aforementioned Brian Hoyer. I think under Kyle Shanahan's tutelage, he can. I mean, he's not going to blow the world off and become a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but he can be a decent mid-range guy who you're going to want to play on certain daily fantasy Sundays. Against a good matchup. I think he's going to be able to throw for 300 yards pretty consistently. They have an offensive line that can protect them. I like their offensive line. They've built through the draft. They have Joe Staley. They signed Zane Beadles and Jeremy Zutaw on the offseason. They drafted Josh Garnett last year. So I like the line that they have put together. So Brian Hoyer, he's going to be the starter under Kyle Shanahan. He might be able to put a decent fantasy season. I mean, a few years ago, we didn't think Kirk Cousins was anything. And look at the quarterback he's kind of blossomed into. Well, that started with Kyle Shanahan. You're not going to get that with Hoyer, but you're going to get some solid numbers. And then if we're not allowed to say Carlos Hyde, maybe he's worried about the reports of him possibly being cut in training camp. I'm going to go with Joe Williams. He's right now listed as their third-string running back, but he's a rookie out of Utah, a guy that I watched a lot of this last season. He actually quit football in the middle of the year for the Utah Utes and just kind of walked away. And then a month later, he came back and kind of lit the world on fire, rushing for over 1,300 yards. So he definitely has the talent. So he might be able to eat into Hyde's carries. But another guy there, Tim Hightower, I think is going to be the goal line back, and you might see him steal some touchdowns out of both of them.
I was thinking about him. Are we not real high on him? I mean, I know he's like 31 now, and he doesn't have that Falcons offensive line anymore. But do you think he still holds relative fantasy value?
If he gets his touches, yeah, I definitely think he does. I think they're going to have to work out how that backfield is exactly going to work. If they do cut Hyde for some reason, then yeah, definitely he's you must have him on your
Would
fantasy
he be the number one?
Probably to start, yeah. I don't think they would put Joe Williams right away into that starting role. It would at least be a shared committee, and Hightower has the experience, so they'll probably go with him for as long as they are completely out of it, which is probably 8 weeks. So, after 8 weeks when they're 1-7, you might see Joe Williams get some more touches.
All right, Javier, that's those guys' take. I'm sorry, I'm just not as optimistic as these guys about your offense when I look at your depth chart, and I'm going to think outside the box. Your best fantasy value player not named Carlos Hyde is Robbie Gould. It's Robbie Gould. You're a kicker. I'm saying you just don't have sexy fantasy guys on your team. Robbie Gould's probably worth about $9 a week. That's going to be close to what Brian Hoyer or Brandon Hoyer's putting up. Who knows? Either one of them. Both of them combined. But I just look at your depth chart and I don't like it. Garcon is ranked probably late 30s as far as that tier. I'll get Dan's take on these ADPs, but Pierre Garcon, not sexy. Probably late 30s is what I would imagine. Vance McDonald's ranked mid 30s for your tight ends. Not sexy. Hoyer's ranked at the bottom of starting quarterbacks in the league this year. And like I said, I like Tim Hightower, but as of right now, I think he's going to be a backup with more of a goal line type production, red zone type production, like Dan was saying. So I'm saying your most valuable your most valuable player on the San Francisco 49ers this year is Robbie Gould, because Zutaw cannot get fantasy points. I was thinking about him like, oh, if only Zutaw could get fantasy points, but he can't. So I'm saying Robbie Gould is going to be your most valuable fantasy production player. Javier, I know you don't like that. Go 49ers. What do you think, Dan? You like that? You like that?
Yes. And kickers win championships. New Breed belted out a championship last year off of his kicker. That's what I'm going to blame it on.
Hey, and I don't like it, and I like playing daily fantasy because you don't have to pick a kicker in a lot of instances. But as far as average, I think Robbie Gould, he's going to be top 4 in average on the 49ers, right? Would you think that's unrealistic, or you think that's serious, Dan?
I'm worried they might not even get into field goal range a lot of times. So that, they have to at least get to the other side of the 50 in order to kick a field goal.
Well, that's also kind of why I was saying that. I just don't like their offensive team together. So, I don't see them punching in a lot of touchdowns. So at least get into field goal range and let Robbie Gould boot out, 3 or so a game.
Someone's got to score. I think, your best way to take a guy like Garcon or Curley, even Brian Hoyer, someone's got to score on that team. I don't think
You got to get 9 a day, and you probably got to get about 9 a game to match Robbie Gould. I'm serious, y'all. I mean, that's only 3 field goals. We'll see. Somebody's got to get the yards. You're right, but I just look at that depth chart, and I'm like, oh, where do we predict the 49ers, guys? Dan, where do you think they're going to fall when it all comes down in the end?
They're fighting for that top pick. I mean, they're a pretty bad team.
3 to 4 wins, maybe.
Yeah, 3-13, 4-12 sounds about right.
Wow. Orlando, what do you think? About the same?
Yeah, the same boat. They're completely just rebuilding the team. So yeah, same thing.
Wow. So there you go. I know that wasn't the what you were looking for, Javier Cedeno. Sorry, but you know you're in San Francisco. So you know
He
what's
knows.
ahead of you. Yeah, you know. But you got something good going on there with John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. We'll see what happens. That's our NFL talk for this week. We'll do more NFL fantasy football prep for you next week. But next, we're going to talk more MLB baseball and fantasy baseball. You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Thanks, guys. We're about to the end of today's show, but we're not going to go until we talk some fantasy baseball. It's hot. This is summertime, so what's going on? And Jackson Borland is back with a question, so let's talk about it. Dan, how pissed are you that the Astros completely screwed themselves at the trade deadline? One move? Jackson Borland. Your show, dog.
Yeah. I'm quite aware of what they did. I'm actually, I might be in the minority, but I'm happy with it. I like what General Manager Jeff Luna was able to do. We got Francisco Liriano, typical left-handed starter. He's going to move him to the pen because they do need that left-handed reliever to get out lefties, because honestly they can't right now.
Yeah, and you're nitpicking at this point too, though, right? I mean, Dan, do the Astros really need to make much? If there's any team that really probably needs to kind of stand pat of what they're doing, it's the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see him maybe get a starter, but they're dealing with injuries, and that's ultimately why I think people are looking at the team right now. But if you imagine, 6 to 8 weeks from now when we're healthy, we're the best team in the American League. So I'm glad that he didn't mortgage the future. The Astros still have a top 5 farm system, so they can not only be good this year, but they have a good chance to be great for the next 10 years with how young their team is. So I'm glad he didn't get rid of prospects like Derek Fisher, like Kyle Tucker, Francis Martes, different names like that who would have been in those package deals for a Sonny Gray or a Yu Darvish. They kept them and showing that they don't only want to win now, but they want to win in the next 10 years. So I like the Astros standing pat. They did get Liriano. But, I mean, all of the names that are on their disabled list are the reason why they're kind of mediocre at this point. It's 9-7 since the All-Star break. You have McCullers, you have Sip, you have Springer, you have Will Harris, Michael Feliz, all on the disabled list. I think 8 to 10 players right now on their 40-man roster are on the 10 or 60-day DL. So they're going through a rough patch at this moment. Coincides with my fantasy team going through a rough patch, but I'm confident we're going to bounce out of it. So I'm happy with it. Even if we don't win the World Series this year, I think, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to win it at least once, if not more than that.
You better just hope your Astros help you beat me in a fantasy baseball championship, because it's coming down to that. I'm telling you, so they better be peaking at the right time. That's all I know. Another thing I know a few things. What I do know is the Yankees did come back and take the lead in that AL East, Jackson Borland. So take that, Dan. They're not dead. I know Aaron Judge is still leading the majors in homers despite a 2-week slump that you keep reminding us about daily, Dan.
Like a 2 months.
Huh?
2 month slump. It's been bad. He's been going down.
Still leading the league in majors or homers. That's all I know. So
and strikeouts. What?
Yeah, we've got to swing for the fences to hit them. And I don't know. Other than that, they did land one of the more coveted free agent pitchers, Sonny Gray, and I think that really kind of shores up and makes their potential playoff starting lineup a little bit more solidified and bona fide if it does come down to that. So they are doing some things, and I'm not writing them off for dead. Jackson's back, baby. Jackson's back, and
My inbox knows. In my inbox knows Jackson's back.
Or did he ever leave?
Hey,
Jackson never left, huh?
I'll give a shout out to Jackson for this. He was mad we did not have a show last week. He was legit upset. So our apologies. I still don't like you, but I'll answer your questions weekly.
Orlando Jackson's back. That's all I got to say. Jackson's back and the Yankees are back.
How upset was he, Dan? What did he tell you? What was he upset about? He didn't get to laugh at you another week? What was it?
No show, no notice. The fact that we did not notify our listeners that we did not have a show.
Well,
that's what really
about, because I mean, at the same time, Astros are slumping, and that was at the time when the Yankees had the lead. They had the lead for, I don't know, at least a week and a half, 2 weeks or so in the AL East, right after the All-Star break.
Well, I don't revolve the My Fantasy podcast around the Yankees win-loss record, Jackson. So, and I don't.
But you do Aaron Judge's. You do Aaron Judge's batting statistics.
Yep. 158 was his batting statistic. In case you didn't know, batting average, which with like 16 strikeouts and 32 at bats. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
There you go. I'm still back on your side, Jackson. Yankees are going to do it. They're going to do it. Let's move on. Adam Vega chimes in next. He says, "What's your fantasy value on Ian Happ? He's got great potential, but I need production this season. Would you trade him for David Peralta? This is a category league. Thanks," from Adam Vega. So he wants to know. And I'll start out. If you want him, you can have him as far as Ian Happ goes. He's on my team right now, in and out of my lineup, put up negative numbers in 5 of his last 7 games. I don't need negative numbers, okay? That's not helping me out. He's got like 5 more hits since the All-Star break than I do. I don't know. I think Peralta may be the better player, at least batting. I mean, his batting average is around 300 or a little above, while Ian Happ is hovering around 250. So right now, if you just want the better bat, but this is a category league. So I'm not real familiar as much with those category leagues, and I may be missing something here. But as of right now, Ian Happ is good. He's serviceable. But I'm thinking Peralta may be a little bit better guy at this point going forward, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Peralta. The thing with the category league is I think Happ is going to have a little bit better home run to RBI ratio. So you have to look at it. Peralta's obviously going to have batting average. Stolen bases are going to be around the same. If one of your categories is strikeouts, that would make me lean more towards Peralta's side because he has a lower strikeout percentage. But it's fairly even in a category league because you have to look at home runs, RBIs, batting average, and different things that gets weighed in. Sometimes on-base percentage is a category. So if that's the case, then you definitely want to go Peralta. He'll draw more walks. So
this is an interesting question because I have Ian Happ and Dan actually has David Peralta. So you want to trade?
Do I still have him? I know I actually dropped Peralta in a couple leagues that I'm in.
Did you have him? I checked it today.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually might be a consideration for a trade, but they're pretty even players, so I don't think you're going to go wrong either way. You said this season, so I would go Peralta, but definitely Dynasty League, it's Ian Happ all the way.
All right, there you go. So I think right now we're agreeing it's David Peralta if you're talking about needing to win right now. Like I said, I mean, yeah, I like Happ long term, but man, right now he's putting up too many negative games for me. Like I said, 5 out of the last 7 with some negative numbers. I don't need that. Okay, I don't need that crap in my life. So, and David Peralta is not as of right now putting up a little bit better numbers, but I don't know. You're not talking about a dynasty league or something like that. I think Peralta is probably the better answer, is what we're both telling you, Adam. Appreciate the question. Let's move on. The next one comes from Rob High, or maybe Rob is High, or Hi Rob. But hi, Rob. Here's his question. The rest of the season, who would you rather have, Derek Fisher or Bradley Zimmer? And I guess the biggest thing I need to know is it just depends on if you need a point guard, right? Because Derek Fisher is one of the best ever from University of Little Rock.
Matt Barnes says no, he's not.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Derek Fisher's hanging around a little bit too close to Matt Barnes' kids, so you got to consider that. You got to think about the health of Derek Fisher and what might happen to him if he keeps hanging around Matt Barnes' kids.
Yes. But the other Derek Fisher, who is leading off for the Astros. I think it may be about him. Might be.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, Astros. Yeah. This changes this whole conversation then. Go ahead. You got this is
Yeah.
I think one of the Astros you don't have, Dan.
Yeah, I picked him up in a couple of leagues that I'm in. I do like his potential. If I'm going rest of the season, I'm probably leaning Zimmer, mainly because of stolen bases. I think Zimmer's going to get you a little bit more stolen bases. He has 13 compared to Fisher's 1. Batting average is around the same. Fisher's right around 300, but Zim's 288, 289. I've become a fan of Zimmer. I've been watching a little bit of Indians, playing him a lot in daily fantasy, and he's done well in that leadoff spot for the Indians. With the trade that the Astros made, Fisher's going to get a little bit more consistent playing time. Nori Aoki went to the Blue Jays. So you're going to get a more consistent at-bats out of Fisher. I've just seen more of a sample size of Zimmer, so that's why I would lean towards the Indians outfielder as opposed to the Astros at this point.
So let me say this. First off the top, let's see. I know Derek Fisher. Do you own Bradley Zimmer, Dan?
I think I picked him up in our league. I did, yeah.
Yeah, you do. And then Derek Fisher is on the waiver wire as of today. So if that lets you know a little bit, Rob, that Fisher is still out there. What I would like to know, Dan, is from the Astros perspective here, is that how, when Springer does come back and is fully healthy, how does that affect Derek Fisher? I know you mentioned they released the other guy, Yoki, but still Springer is going to take up some time of Fisher now. How does Fisher look after Springer's fully back?
Yeah, I still think they're going to give Fisher. He's going to be their everyday left fielder. Springer is going to be in center or right, and then you have a combination of basically everybody else. So Jake Marisnick, Josh Reddick. Reddick will probably get consistent playing time as well. So Fisher will get his days off. It won't be as bad as Evan Gattis, who I had to give up on.
He did.
Yes. But DDT picked him right back up after I dropped him.
It worked out for him because he beat you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Zimmer's just going to get more consistent playing time. I don't think Springer coming back will affect it too much, but he'll get probably 1 to 2 days off a week.
Yeah, it's just the unknown with Fisher that scares me right now. Just too much unknown. I don't know. So I'm agreeing with Dan, Bradley Zimmer. But what really kind of stuck out to me is how many damn Astros players are fantasy relevant, and how many of them does Dan have? It's like an onslaught here. Just you can tell how well a year that the Astros are having based on how many guys they have that are just fantasy relevant. Period.
Yeah, 1 to 9 through their lineup is hitting above 260. Their pitching staff has done great. So, I mean, it's definitely been a year to own Astros, and that's part of my fantasy expertise. I knew that going in. It was going to be special, and everybody was just going to have to watch and be in awe. And, Brandon, when he goes on our ESPN Fantasy League all the time, he just has to sit back, turn on his LeVar Ball video, and look at my roster. And you're in awe.
Well, honestly, right now, I like where I'm at as far as fantasy baseball goes, Dan. I really like where I'm at. I think, and don't underestimate the fact that Starling Marte came back, and he's doing very well since his comeback. So that's a piece I didn't have all year long. And barring injuries, I think I'm right in position to meet you in the championship.
I'll see you there if you get there. That's all I got to say.
Take 2 out of 3. Orlando?
Yeah, I will. I am going to take. Yes, you're right. I will. 2 out of 3.
No. You should, but we know what happened in basketball when I was dominating all year long and you snuck in there.
Just like me in football.
Exactly. I barely made the playoffs thanks to our man Orlando Torres. What up, man? Last word from you for the podcast before we sign off. What's going on?
Not much. I guess we're going to continue to be fantasy heavy, and I love the questions. I think all three of us could agree with that. And just keep up with the great content that's being put out daily and weekly.
Yeah, a lot. And it's also a hot time for TV shows right now, too, huh? I mean, with the Food Network star stuff going on, that's always blowing up. But we got Game of Thrones, which debuted the final season there just like 2 weeks ago. That's always hot and blowing up on the site, too. So we always say it, but now with just about as any time as, more than others, as some of these late summer fall shows are starting to come out, but sports and entertainment cannot miss it. But as far as sports goes, it is about to ramp up and pick up. And I know, Orlando, you cannot wait for this fantasy football season. You'll probably be so mad about your standings. You'll be throwing out articles daily about what you should have done.
Nah, I learned my lesson last season. I don't look for a repeat. I don't look for a repeat at all. Maybe laugh at y'all standings, that's all I'm gonna say, or maybe one of the fans jump y'all in the standings and see what happens.
Yeah, these fans are brutal, man. So now you got more incentive. If we're gonna mingle them into our league, you can't be pulling this crap. Although you didn't finish nowhere near last place last year. Like I said, you made a little bit of run to help me get into the playoffs. It's just that now someone wants to see you in a fantasy championship. The fans at home want to see you in one of these fantasy championships. The next one available is for you is football.
True. So, I've been preaching that since last year, that I've been plotting, and the time is fine. It's coming. For a few more weeks, it's coming.
I can't wait. And that's why I'm so glad we're doing a redraft. Redraft, everyone. Yes. So we're going to do that. And like I said, if you want to get involved, just contact us, man. We're going to have a few spots open, so we'd like to involve the fans as we have done the baseball league. And the baseball league, everybody's competitive. Everybody's picking up. Some other people are making late season runs. And like I said, DDT beat Dan last week. We got some other people that are right up there. Under Dan. Dan is about 3 games or so ahead of everybody else, but it's competitive and it's a nice mix. So we appreciate you guys for joining us in that, and we'll see what happens in the fantasy football league. Dan, before we go, let's talk about the site. Let's talk about RotoSurance. You want to talk about RotoSurance this week? We had Ryan Flaherty on the last time on the last podcast. So everything's kind of settling down, soaking into you that you can actually purchase fantasy football insurance for your money leagues long term from Ryan Flaherty and RotoSurance.
Yeah. I mean, we talked 2 weeks ago. We loved the concept, thought it was great. Ryan gave us great info. I went on the site since it went live August 1st just to see. I mean, I signed up for a coupon, so I get 50% off my first player, which is great. I was very excited about it, expecting those players to be what Ryan said, between $5 and $10. And I was kind of shocked when I saw some of the players being closer to $17 to insure. You might think $7 is a lot, but
who were those players? Was that the upper echelon? Or are you saying everybody? So
the upper echelon is probably 50 players. I mean, the top 50 players are all $17. So I felt a little duped looking at it. I still like the concept, but I think he could have been more forthcoming with the prices. Here, My Fantasy Sports Talk will definitely help, different companies thrive if you have a great idea that we like and support. I just wish to our listeners we could have got the right prices. So I went on there with a different expectation than what was set. Still like the idea, but the figures are a little bit higher than I would have originally thought after talking with Ryan last week.
Well, I did hear him say some of them range from 7 to 10, and that's what I saw. I think on David Johnson, I saw him like a $750 for like a $50 buy-in. So I saw that the price increased on your entry league, so the fee.
Okay, so I chose $100 leagues.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking at a $200 buy-in.
$100. So yeah, I think there was a $50 option, and I did not look at that one. So that could be the case.
Well, and that's one of the questions I did have last week with Dan after we left with Ryan is that, what kind of buy-ins are we talking about? Because like I said, I know some people that play in a couple $1,000 leagues. I mean, what is the payout? The policy has to be higher if you're going to pay out $2,000 to a player.
I think the maximum was 500.
Okay,
yeah.
See, I didn't quite know that, but it could be outrageous. Some of these so that also kind of handicaps even the type and sort of leagues that we're talking about. It has to be a certain dollar amount to even qualify in that.
Yeah, and they offer 2 different insurances where they'll cover either 60% of your league fee or 100% of your league fee. Something that I wasn't aware of either. So I chose the 100% because I would want all my money back if I were to insure it. I'm not going to insure it for only 60%. That's me personally. So I'll have to do a little bit more digging into if I'm actually going to insure any of my players this year. But those figures, I guess, so it's different on your price level. So I'll be interested to see if anybody does it for that $500 price point, what that cost is on those players.
I'm actually in the league where the entry fee is $200, and I think it was going up to like around $17 or $18 a player. But I think if I get a top 10 player, one of those high-end players, and that's a co-owners league, so it's $100 for each of us for the buy-in. I think I would kind of pay the $17 on a player. So, because if you're getting your $200 entry fee back for one player or two, I understand we would have liked, to be more forthcoming, but that's not a bad investment. There's a chance to get your $200 back for the whole year.
Yeah, it's just something to check out. You need to check it out and check out all the stipulations and the different options available for it. But it's something you've never had before. And as Ryan was mentioning when he was on the last podcast, it also depends on what player you're taking. If you're ending up taking someone who you think is a high risk injury type player, or at least a more than so probability that he may be injured at some point in the season, then it's something to look into for sure. But otherwise, on the site right now, Tony Romo's back on the site. Dan, CBS is setting him up to fail, apparently. But Food Network star, all that stuff going on the Food Network star. We're getting winding that down. Atomic Blonde review right now on the site. That movie looks awesome. Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron and Teen Wolf, UFC. Yeah, I know Orlando had UFC on last week. His predictions before the card, John Bones Jones whooped down Daniel Cormier. All that's on the site right now, plus more. Dan?
Yeah, definitely check it out. Entertainment section blowing up. Food Network star is incredibly popular, and just the entertainment section as a whole. Fantasy, anything, we got it covered. And I've learned my lesson. No more imagery in my headlines. My apologies, New York Giants fans. It'll never happen again. But check out the site. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. 4 more likes till we're at 1,500 on Facebook, so keep it going. Give us that little thumbs up. We definitely will appreciate it.
There you go. Bingo. We appreciate it. We appreciate all you guys. Next week, we're going to be talking more NFL fantasy football prep for you as we get closer to that and get you ready for those football drafts, which, again, we're going to be live on My Fantasy Podcast August 23rd. That's a Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern Time for all of you to watch. Some of you even may be able to participate in that live fantasy draft from myfantasysportstalk.com. So appreciate it. Keep all those fantasy football questions coming, you pansies. We appreciate it, seriously. We'll talk more fantasy baseball as that season is winding down, and we get closer to our myfantasysportstalk.com fantasy baseball championship that I'm going to win over maybe Dan Schalk if he's there. We'll see. And whatever else breaks in the world of sports and entertainment, probably more crazy-ass LeVar Ball talk. Where's Kyrie going? Where's Carmelo going? If that happens, if we know, if we think we know, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll know. And as always, bring your mailbag questions. Submit them, no matter how insulting they may be. We'll talk about them. Not above that. Thanks for checking out the podcast live on YouTube. Thanks for checking out the replays, of course, on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, WBLZ at WBLZsports.com, where we got balls. And, of course, thanks for checking out the website daily, myfantasysportstalk.com. Why go anywhere else for sports and entertainment? Thanks to our thespian Orlando Torres for joining us today and taking more heat from the fans out there. For Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, later, podcast peeps. Peace.